The letter trembled in my hands as I read it again, hoping somehow the words would rearrange themselves into something less devastating. But there it was, in black and white. Plans to sell my family's farm, complete with Cole's signature at the bottom. I'd only been looking for stamps in his study. Instead, I found a stack of correspondence hidden behind his collection of leather-bound classics. The letters were dated over the past 6 months, while he'd been telling me how much he loved spending weekends at the farm with Eli. Everything okay in there? Cole's voice carried from the kitchen, making me jump. I shoved the letter back into its envelope, my fingers clumsy with anger and disbelief. Fine, I called back, hating how normal my voice sounded. Just organizing some papers. The study door creaked open, and Cole appeared with 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might need this. He smiled, but something flickered in his eyes when he saw where I was standing. What are you doing in that section? I held up the letter. Care to explain this? His face remained carefully neutral as he set the coffee cups down. Those are private business matters, Marin. Private business matters involving my family's farm? My voice cracked. The farm where I grew up? Where Eli learned to ride his first bike. Cole straightened his shoulders, switching seamlessly into what I called his lawyer mode. It's more complicated than you think. I was going to tell you once everything was finalized. It's actually a surprise. Don't. I cut him off, suddenly unable to bear another smooth explanation. Just don't. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably Tessa, checking if we were still on for lunch. I'd been planning to tell her about Eli's new job offer, about how proud I was of our son. Instead, I'd be telling her about this. Cole reached for the letter, but I pulled it back. We should discuss this later, when you're calmer. I looked at my husband of 25 years, really looked at him, and wondered how many other secrets were hidden behind his carefully curated library. You're right about one thing, I said quietly. We definitely need to discuss this later. The familiar crunch of gravel under my tires did nothing to settle my nerves as I pulled up to the farm. Eli was already there, his new company car parked next to Dad's old tractor. I'd asked him to meet me here, needing both the comfort of his presence and the strength of my childhood home to face what was coming. Mom, Eli called from the barn. I was just checking out Grandpa's workbench. Everything okay? I found him sorting through old tools, his hands covered in the same rust-colored dust that had stained my father's hands for decades. Just wanted to spend some time here with you, I said, running my fingers along the worn wooden workbench. Your grandfather built this himself, you know. Yeah, you've told me. Eli paused, studying my face. But that's not why we're really here, is it? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Tessa's name flashed on the screen, along with a text that made my stomach drop. Call me ASAP. Saw something you need to know. Mom, Eli's voice had that careful tone he used when he thought I was upset, just like his father's lawyer voice. I need to take this, I said, stepping outside. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the farmyard as I dialed Tessa's number. I wasn't sure if I should tell you. Tessa started, skipping hello. But I saw Cole at Riverside yesterday. He wasn't alone. My free hand gripped the barn door. Business lunch. Unless business involves holding hands across the table with someone half his age. Tessa's voice softened. I'm so sorry, Marin. Inside the barn, Eli was whistling the same tune my father used to whistle while he worked. The sound wrapped around my heart like barbed wire. She had long dark hair, Tessa continued. Designer clothes. Couldn't have been more than 25. I watched Eli through the barn door, carefully arranging his grandfather's tools the way I taught him. The farm, the letters, and now this. How much of my life had been built on lies? Marin. Tessa's voice brought me back. What are you going to do? I don't know, I said, watching my son preserve a legacy his father was trying to destroy. But I know where to start. The photograph slipped from between the pages of my father's old ledger, Cole and Silas Whitaker standing in front of the farm. Dated 25 years ago. I'd never seen it before, but what caught my eye was the handwritten note on the back. Remember our agreement. The farm stays in the family. Silas Whitaker. Cole's estranged uncle, the one he'd forbidden us to contact. The same man who tried to warn me about something at our wedding before Cole whisked me away. I pulled into the circular driveway of Silas's mansion, ignoring Cole's text messages asking where I was. The old man who opened the door looked nothing like the stern figure from the photograph. "Marin Whitaker," he said, not a question. "I've been expecting you for years." His study smelled of leather and cigars, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking manicured gardens. "Cole's selling the farm," I said, placing the photograph on his desk. Silas picked up a crystal tumbler, his hands trembling slightly. "Just like his father would have done. The apple doesn't fall far from that particular tree." "What agreement?" I pointed to the note. "What aren't you telling me?" "Your father came to me before the wedding," Silas said, his voice heavy. "He was worried about Cole's intentions. Asked me to look into his background." He paused, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "I found things. Things that would have stopped the wedding." My throat tightened. "And Cole found out. Threatened to expose some of my own indiscretions. We made a deal. My silence for his promise to protect the farm." Silas's laugh was bitter. "I should have known better. Should have told you anyway." "Told me what?" "That Cole had done this before. Another family, another farm, another young woman who lost everything." Silas slid a file across his desk. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" I stared at the file, my hands cold. Through the window, I could see storm clouds gathering over the gardens. "Everything I have to," I said, reaching for the file. "Everything I should have done 25 years ago." Silas nodded, a glimmer of respect in his tired eyes. "Then let me help you." I sat in my car outside Tessa's house, staring at the photos the private investigator had just sent. Cole and his young companion, Lila Hart, according to the report, entering a real estate office together. The same office, handling the farm sale. My hands shook as I zoomed in on her face, noting how she looked barely older than Eli. Tessa opened my car door before I could knock. "You look like you need wine." Inside, she poured 2 glasses while I spread the photos across her kitchen counter. "She's not just his mistress," I said. "She's his business partner. They're in this together." "Jesus, Marin." Tessa picked up one of the photos. "Have you told Eli?" The wine turned sour in my mouth. How do I tell my son his father is destroying everything his grandfather built? My phone buzzed Cole. I declined the call, but not before noticing his text. "Where are the files for my study?" "He knows I know," I said, showing Tessa the message. She grabbed my hand. "There's something else. Something I should have told you earlier." She hesitated, then pulled out her tablet. "Remember Angela Reynolds? From college." The name hit me like a slap. Angela had disappeared our senior year, leaving behind a scandal involving a married man. What about her? Tessa pulled up an old newspaper article. There was Angela, 25 years younger, standing in front of her family's orchard. Beside her, smiling that familiar confident smile, was Cole. It was all over the papers in her hometown, Tessa said quietly. The orchard was sold 6 months after she disappeared. To a development company owned by Cole. I finished, my voice hollow. And now he's doing it again. With my farm. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Eli. "Dad's acting weird. Says you took something important from his office. What's going on?" I stared at my son's message, thinking of Angela, of Lila, of all the lies built up over 25 years. "I need to tell him," I said, "before Cole spins this his way." Tessa nodded, already grabbing her keys. "I'm coming with you." Cole was waiting in our kitchen when I got home, his laptop open to photos of me leaving Silas's house. "Breaking your promise about staying away from my uncle?" He smiled, but his eyes were cold. "That's not like you, Marin." I placed the file from Silas on the counter between us. "Neither is selling my family's farm behind my back. Or Angela Reynolds' orchard 25 years ago." The smile vanished. "You've been busy. Tell me something, Cole. Did you plan it from the beginning? Or did the idea come later, after you realized how much the farm was worth?" He closed his laptop slowly. "You wouldn't understand. Some things are more important than sentiment. Like Lila Hart?" I watched his face carefully. Your new business partner seems very invested in the deal. Don't. His voice hardened. You have no idea what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I pulled out my phone, showing him the investigator's photos. Same pattern as Angela. Young, ambitious woman. Family property ripe for development. Tell me, does Lila know what happened to Angela after the orchard sale? Cole's hand shot out, knocking my phone to the floor. That's enough. No, it's not nearly enough. My voice remained steady despite my racing heart. 25 years of lies. Of manipulation. Did you ever love me, Cole? Or was I just another stepping stone? He laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the kitchen walls. Love? You wanted security, status, a comfortable life. I gave you all of that. The farm was just collateral. The front door opened. Eli's voice called out. Mom?
Dad.
Cole's expression shifted instantly, smoothing into the familiar mask of concerned husband and father. But before he could speak, I made my decision. In here, honey, I called back. Your father was just explaining why he's selling the farm. And about his girlfriend, Lila. I held Cole's gaze. I think it's time we all heard the truth, don't you? The color drained from Cole's face as Eli's footsteps approached the kitchen. There would be no more masks, no more lies. The breaking point had finally arrived. The annual Whitaker family reunion buzzed with forced cheerfulness as I watched Cole work the crowd, his hand resting possessively on Lila's lower back. She wore a sundress that probably cost more than a month's mortgage payment, looking every bit the eager young protégé. You don't have to do this today, Tessa whispered, squeezing my arm. Yes, I do. I clutched the manila envelope containing everything, the letters, the photos, the proof of Cole's past schemes. Before he convinces everyone I'm the unstable one. Eli stood by the barbecue, frowning as he watched his father laugh at something Lila said. He hadn't spoken to Cole since that night in the kitchen, but I could see the questions in his eyes, the need to understand. Cole clinked his glass, gathering everyone's attention. I have an announcement to make. He smiled, that practiced courtroom smile. As some of you know, we're planning an exciting new development project. The old farm. Tell them the rest, Cole. My voice cut through the murmur of the crowd. About Angela Reynolds. About how you've done this before. The silence was immediate. Cole's smile flickered. Marin, you're upset. We can discuss this privately. Like you discussed selling my family's farm privately? I opened the envelope. Or, like you discussed it with Lila here. She knows about Angela, right? About what happened after you finished with her family's orchard? Lila stepped away from Cole, her perfectly composed face showing the first crack of uncertainty. What is she talking about? She's confused, Cole said smoothly. Dealing with some personal issues. The only issue I'm dealing with, I said, pulling out the documents, is 25 years of lies. And I have proof. But as I reached for the first letter, Cole's glass slipped from his hand, crashing to the ground. In the chaos of people jumping back, avoiding broken glass, I felt something wet splash across the envelope. Red wine soaked through the papers, bleeding across years of evidence. Such a shame, Cole said softly, his eyes meeting mine. Accidents happen. I stared at the ruined documents, my hands shaking. Then Silas stepped forward, his voice cutting through the tension. I have copies. Of everything. He turned to Cole. Did you really think I wouldn't keep records? The look of triumph on Cole's face vanished, replaced by something I'd never seen before. Fear. Silas's study felt smaller with all of us crowded inside, me, Cole, Eli, and Lila, who hadn't stopped trembling since the reunion. Outside, rain pelted the windows, nature providing its own soundtrack to our family's implosion. Tell them, Silas said, sliding a leather portfolio across his desk to Cole. Or I will. Cole's fingers tapped against his thigh, a nervous habit I'd never noticed in 25 years of marriage. This is ridiculous. You can't possibly. Angela Reynolds is alive, Silas cut in Vancouver. She reached out to me last month. Lila's head snapped up. Who's Angela Reynolds? Cole's first attempt at this particular scheme, Silas said. But she was smarter than he expected. Kept records. Just like I did.
Dad.
Eli's voice cracked on the word. What's he talking about? Cole lunged for the portfolio, but Silas was faster, opening it to reveal a document I recognized, the original deed to my family's farm, with a signature that wasn't mine. Forgery, Silas said quietly. Just like with Angela's orchard. The same pattern, the same scheme, 25 years apart. You don't understand, Cole snarled. I built something from nothing, took worthless land and made it valuable. I gave you everything you have. No, I said, watching Eli's face as he read through the documents. We gave you everything. Our trust. Our love. Our family name. Silas pulled out one final document, which is why I'm changing my will. Everything goes to Eli, with one condition: the farm stays in the family. Forever. Cole's laugh was hollow. You can't do this to me. I'm your nephew. You're nothing but a con man, Eli said, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. And you're not my father anymore. The rain intensified as Cole stared at his son, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. What about you, Lila? We had plans. But Lila was already backing toward the door, clutching her designer purse like a shield. I think I've seen enough plans for one lifetime. As she fled, I watched Cole's face crumple and felt something unexpected. Pity. He'd lost everything trying to possess it all. Spring came early to the farm this year. I watched from the porch as Eli worked with a contractor, pointing out where his grandfather's old barn needed reinforcing. The bed and breakfast they were planning would preserve everything important while bringing new life to the land. Tessa joined me, handing over a steaming cup of coffee. Mail came. There's a letter from Silas. Inside the envelope, I found a yellowed photograph Cole as a child, standing beside his father in front of a small farmhouse. The note from Silas was brief. Found this while cleaning out father's desk. Cole's childhood home was foreclosed when he was 12. Perhaps understanding doesn't equal forgiveness, but it might help explain. Mom, Eli called from the yard. We found something in the barn wall. Behind a loose board, we discovered a tin box containing my father's old letters to my mother, written while he was building this place. One line caught my eye. A home isn't just walls and land. It's the love we build into every corner. My phone buzzed, a text from Angela Reynolds. Heard about Cole. Thank you for finishing what I couldn't. The orchard's gone, but I'm finally free. Hope you are too. The contractor needs final approval on the plans, Eli said, studying my face. You okay? I looked at my son, seeing traces of Cole in his features, but something entirely his own in his spirit. The divorce papers had been signed last week, Cole's signature as precise as ever, though his hands had trembled. I'm better than okay, I said, tucking the old photograph into my pocket. Understanding Cole's past didn't excuse his actions, but it helped me release the last traces of anger I'd been carrying. Let's build something new. Later, as sunset painted the fields gold, I added my father's letters to the family archive Eli and I were creating for future generations. Among them, I placed Silas's final note about Cole. Some stories needed to be remembered, not for revenge or justice, but for the wisdom they carried. The farm would survive, transformed but unbroken, just like us.